Hello. A while ago I did a first impressions video about this KingKong 260 size quadcopter frame, and as you can see I still have not built it, but don't worry, I will definitely build this. I actually have quite big plans for this. I'm going to make a series based or aimed at total newbies to the quadcopter scene, and I've picked this one to be the frame or the recommended choice. May not be the best frame, but the reason I say that is because there's a little bit of a strange situation going on in that it seems to me that they expect you to put the PDB on the bottom here exposed to the bottom, and also I think you're going to have to fit the ESCs on there as well. It seems to be the most logical place. So there's a little bit of strangeness going on there. We'll figure out that a bit more when we get to building it, I guess. But what I wanted to look at in this video is this 188 size frame. Looks like 166, doesn't it? But it says 188, and that's just come out recently, and it's basically a scaled down version of this, and unfortunately it still has some strange things going on with what they expect you to do to the bottom of it. So I really hoped that I would like this one a lot, but so far it's not really grabbing me as a great design so much. But yeah, so you're probably wondering, why am I recommending this one then? Good question. Maybe I should choose another frame for the build. But part of the thing was that this was very cheap because you could get two of them for $26, I think. And this one is still very cheap. This is, I think it's about $10 on Banggood, or just under $8 on Hobby King, but you've got to pay shipping for Hobby King. If you can get the shipping for less than $2, well, good luck. I guess you can get it on Hobby King. Otherwise, Banggood is probably the cheapest one I've seen so far anyway. And anyway, so let's get on with having a look at it. One of the things I liked about this frame when I first took it out of the box is that it's made from what appears to be the same material as the good old FPV 250 frame. This one that we've seen all over the place from the beginning of time, it seems. This is my first frame that I've done a third build of now, and I've been flying this for well over a year and a half, and absolutely no damage whatsoever. And it's made from what seems to be the same plastic. See how it has a sort of an can't really see it too well in the video, but there's a bit of a swirly look to it, almost like an oily looking surface. If you've ever seen oil in a puddle in the rain, it sort of has a little bit of that look to it. So we can see that the same thing is here. So I'm assuming that this frame will be as strong as that black one that I just looked at. So hopefully this one is as well. And I just took a quick look at it, and it seems to be the same. So that's a good start. Yeah, you can sort of see what I mean. It looks a bit sort of shiny and oily looking. Now, as I said, this one came with two frames in the box, which was quite generous, and it also came with 10 pairs of props. And it looks like they've cottoned on to the lack of the need to do that, because although you do still get quite a few things in here, you actually get a power distribution board included as well, as we can see there. They are only giving you 3 pairs of props now, so I guess they're trying to make a bit more money maybe. But the rest of it is very similar to the larger one. I should link to my video of this one maybe, because I might be referring to the video I made about this every now and then. But let me just get all this out and we'll have a look at the pieces separately. Okay, that's all the bits laid out there. We've got some screws, and I don't really think I need to explain anything here, do I? Perhaps what's not immediately obvious is this one here, which is a LED strip and a protective cover for the LED strip. This goes on the back as it did in the other quad, and it looks a bit fat, or wide rather, and that's because it's exactly the same size as for the other quad. So you could use those LED bars interchangeably if you broke one and you wanted to replace it with this one. And once again, these are random colors, so I got green here, which is not really what I would want, but oh well, that's alright. And also the other thing that might not be immediately obvious is these two bits here, and this is to go in front of the camera or around the camera, and they'll be sitting like that, and you put your top plate on top like that. So let's have a look at this, because this is quite important. I think it's nice to have, but I feel that the design or the placement of stuff in here is really strange. So I'll just give you a bit of a closer look at that. We have on here, if we can just focus, this is a switching beck. Come on, there we go. Rather than the linear beck, so that's nice. You're not going to be wasting power and generating heat with this beck. And it is a 5 volt 1.5 amp, it looks like, it says there. Interestingly, it says 5 volt 1 amp on that side. And then you have some connections that just go to the other side, so they are the audio and the video, they just go over to those connections there. Actually, I think all of these 5 connections just go directly over to the other side. And then you've got battery input and main power to your 4 ESCs, and you have also battery there if you like. These connections here I have not seen on a PDB before. As far as I can tell, they are just negative the ground and positive 5 volts, just from looking at the traces there. Yes, it's going over to 5 volts there, and it seems like this one here that would be a signal pin is actually doing nothing. So I'm happy to be corrected if that is actually used for something, but I just can't see what it would be connecting to there. Speaking of connections, there's a little bit of a strange thing going on here, but it may be intentional. And what I mean is that, see how we have the audio and video pads here, and then just here there's a little via. Sorry for the shaking, it's hard to sort of... So just there we see a couple of vias going through to the other side. If we turn it over, all those vias do is they bring it over to here. And then, hold on, let me see if I can focus this better. Wow, having real trouble focusing today. Oh geez, now I've got the light in the way. But all... So this via goes through to the other side and then pops up here. And then it goes over here for about a centimetre or so. Then it goes back under and it pops up over in one of these ones. And then it comes to here. And then it goes through to the back and then it comes over to here. So there's 3 sets of vias in there, and all they do is take it to the other side and back 3 times. And those are the same for audio and video connections. So perhaps that's intentional. Maybe that's can help to reduce the RF interference on the signal line or something. I don't know, but it's rather strange. But that's not not the strangest thing about this by any means. The strangest thing is that they expect you, from what I can tell, to put it onto here, because we have these 3 or 6 rather connections there, and that's where it goes. It fits in there perfectly, and it also tells you explicitly in the instructions that that's where it goes, see, on the bottom. Now that's pretty weird in itself, because you're going to have all of this exposed at the bottom. And to be fair, there is a slight sort of a bump here. I've put my finger in front of it so you can see what I mean. There's a sort of a tab here that sticks up a little bit, so you've got maybe a little bit of clearance when it's on a flat surface. But if you're landing on grass, or especially wet grass or something, that's going to be useless. But the strangeness doesn't stop there, because where are you going to put your ESCs? Are you going to put them in there? I doubt it. You've got to put them on the top, I suppose, or maybe on the arms, but either way that's a bit of a strange thing. The other problem is there doesn't seem to be a purpose-made spot for the flight controller to sit on here, so you could foam tape it down, I suppose. I thought at first that these 4 little indentations in the side, this one and that one and the 2 on the other side there, I thought perhaps they were for a flight controller because they are around about the same size, but they're not in the right place. Oh, it looks like they are there. Damn it. Okay, and when I put them exactly beside each other, you can see they're not going to line up. And these holes are typically 3mm thread, 3mm diameter screw holes anyway. So these holes on here are not big enough for that screw to get in the first place. So it doesn't look like these holes are supposed to be used for that. And even if they were, you wouldn't want the flight controller there, because if you do it like they suggest, then your flight controller is going to be sticking out the bottom with all those pins and the mess of wires underneath there, isn't it? So it is a bit strange that there isn't some sort of a mounting position on here for a flight controller, because they did a fairly good job of that with the last one. You can see the screw holes just below the KingKong text there, and it is wide enough for that. There's definitely room. Even to put it on this PDB, there's almost room. So it is a bit of a puzzle. I suppose you could use narrower screws, and you could maybe... No, just... I guess if you used really narrow screws, you could get it through both of those holes at the same time, but then there's nowhere for the screw to go in here. So the whole thing is just really strange. Alright, what else have we got? Oh yeah, one thing that did occur to me is that if you want to tip it upside down so that you'd have this on the bottom, it does actually work out so that these two pieces that you're supposed to be using, or this piece for the back and the spaces for the other 3 points. So there's 3 points that you're going to have these standoffs like that. They're actually still level. If you turn it upside down, it works out quite nicely. So if you wanted to, you could make it like this, and then that's still level. So I'm not sure if that's a coincidence or not, but if you wanted to make it like that, you could, and then you would have just the flat plastic on the bottom, which would be much nicer for protecting things. But it sort of means that you can't use some of the other things that they've organized, which is this little camera protector thing, and this, which I'll get to in a second, which is also rather strange. So the idea with this camera protector is that you would put it that way. Actually, these holes are slightly different spaced on the top and the bottom, so I think, yeah. So that just sits on there, and then you've got another couple of little holes that line up with a couple of holes there. Seems a little bit flimsy, but I don't know, once the standoffs were screwed down tightly, it might be alright. There we go, like that. And then of course on top of that you would put your Mobius or your Runcam or whatever mounting plate on there, and they've given you just the 3, just enough, no spares, damping mounts for that. So these plates, the idea is that you'll choose one of these, and you can see they've given you, one of them has 2 tabs at the top and the other one has just 1 tab, and same at the bottom, like that. And so the idea is that one of them will be angled and one of them will be straight. And you can see here, if I hold these 2 plates up next to each other, we can see we've got the 2 tabs are forward on the top plate and the single tab is back on the top plate, and they're reversed on there. So you just pick one of these, and whichever one makes it angle back, you can use that one. Well, if you want it to be angled back, I suppose. So that'll give you sort of a angle like that. And that's all very well, but one thing I noticed straight away, so that's quite nice. But one thing I noticed straight away is that you're not going to be able to fit a regular board camera like this size in there. So this is the one that's about, it's just over 3 centimeters. You can see there, these are 1 centimeter squares. It's just over 3 centimeters in size on each side. That's not going to fit in here, I don't think. No, not a chance. So you might have to get one of these newer cameras that are coming out, which are basically just the size of this plastic structure here, like the, I think it's HS117M, I think, is a bit like that. But even then, I'm not sure how you are expected to mount that onto that plate. Yeah, well, I don't have one of those HS117M, so perhaps if I got one it would be obvious how it would fit on there, but just looking at it now I don't really see a very nice way to mount that on. So that's another strange feature. But apart from that, I mean, it's cheap and it seems very durable. And this, I did figure out how you're supposed to use these eventually, so I in my other video I said I didn't know what you're supposed to do with them, but you're supposed to wrap them around like that. That's how they work. Easy when you know how. Okay, so the props they give you, like I said, just 3 pairs of props, and they are their own KingKong brand props. They are 4-inch 40-45 props, and like that, and they have this rather strange central hub which lets you use either a single shaft or double shafted motor mounts, and this is a 5mm hole, so it's pretty easy to just slap that straight onto pretty much any of the mini quad motors that are out there. What else have we got to say? Alright, I'll just put this together and I'll stick a couple of these motors on here so that you can get an idea of what it would look like with these on. They are 1306, 1806 and 1804, and I'll probably go for one of these two when I build it. You're not going to be able to fit a 22 size motor, this is 2204, because the holes, the mountings at the end of the arms are just not going to do that for you, they're just too small. So anyway, let me just put this together. Oh, while I'm talking about props, I've used the 5-inch KingKong props and also the 6-inch KingKong props that came with this one, and I've been really impressed with them, and also some other props that I got recently seem to be coming out where they are very resilient. So this is one that's been through, oh, I don't know, quite a few crashes now, and in one of the crashes it bent from about here, it sort of bent all the way down, and I managed to bend it back and keep flying, and you can't really see a whole lot in there. If I turn it over you can see just a bit of whitening at the this point here and maybe a little bit there, but that's about it. So I still have yet to damage one of these KingKong props to the point where I can't use it anymore. So I'm quite happy that these props seem to be made of the same stuff. They're a little bit flexible, but I guess that's part of the resilience there, isn't it? Okay, that's everything put together there, except of course the spare plate that you wouldn't be using anyway. And we are getting 72 grams for all of that stuff there. Let me just put a couple of these motors on and then we'll have a look at that. And while we're here, let's just of course check the layout, which I should have done before. Of course 4-inch props are going to be fine because that's what came in the kit, but 5-inch props are not going to be okay. I'm not sure if there's any such thing as a 4.5-inch prop out there at the moment, but it's probably not going to work either, even if there is one. And while we're looking at layout as well, I added the layout for this to my motor mixing calculator, and it's almost exactly the same as the 260, the aspect between the width and the height of these. So I'm clicking on these two, but you don't really see much change, so it's obvious. If I click on something else you can see the change, but between these two there's not really that much at all. So it's almost like an exactly scaled down version of the larger one. Okay, I put some motors on there just to give you an impression of what it might look like with some motors that you may already have attached to it. And I forgot to check this dimension here for the props before, but when we check it now you can see you're definitely not going to get anything larger than a 4-inch prop on there, because it's really quite close already. And actually those props kind of distracting when we're trying to get an image of the motors, aren't we? So that is at the front we have an 1804, back is an 1806, is looking rather large for this, but it would probably still work, I think. And then over there we have excuse me, have a 1306 motor, which is looking rather small. So I'm kind of thinking I might go with one of these, maybe this one, I think, at the moment. We'll see. So it's the fit and finish is very nice. It goes together very well. No crooked holes or misalignments or anything. And I was just checking this piece here before, and it's this piece at the front surprisingly well stuck in. Like I said, once you've got these standoffs screwed down properly, it's I mean, it's not going to stand up to being hit by a tree head on at full speed, I don't think, but it's a lot stronger than I thought. Another thing to mention is that there's a kind of a vertical plate on the inside there, and I think the idea with that is that you're supposed to stick your video transmitter on there with double-sided tape or something and have it sticking out, have the antenna sticking out the back. Not really sure, I haven't tried that, but it looks to me like that is what the intention is, because there's the same kind of things going on in the back of this one. So we've got that plate there, just in front of where you would have your video antenna coming out. Okay, so I might just turn these lights on and we'll have a look at the lights. There we go, quite green. Oh, not too bad. They always look too bright in the video, but they are actually, it's not far off, you know, what it looks like in real life. Except you don't see quite as much green color in the video. But yeah, that's nice, not bad at all. The width of the top plate is just on 35mm, which is quite a nice width, because that's what roughly the width of most of the common batteries are, like this one and the typical 2200s and everything are all made to about the same width, and that fits on there really nicely. And this is a Nanotech 1300 mAh 3 cell, and it doesn't look oversized for this frame, looks kind of okay, but it does worry me that it's towards the back quite a lot. So you're going to have a heavy camera to outweigh that, or to tip the balance into the middle again. Another thing that I forgot to mention just before is that you have, right in the middle of everything, you have this big pillar. Well, it's not big, but it's right in the middle of everything. So that kind of complicates things if you wanted to put a typical square NASA 32 style flight controller exactly in the middle of the motors. You can't quite get it in there. So I'm sort of wondering if maybe they intended for this frame to be used with the smaller, kind of half-sized flight controllers that we see sometimes these days, like that. See that's a half-size, or whatever you call it, NASA 32 Mini or whatever they're called, and it's about half the size of the normal 3cm square boards. So if you had one of those, you could probably just foam tape it in there quite happily anywhere, and there'd still be plenty of room for other stuff, and you're going to want your other stuff to be towards the front, since you have the battery there. So what else do we have to look at? Is there any dihedral in this? There appears to be a tiny little bit of dihedral, like the motors are slightly angled inward like that. And I noticed the same is true of this one. It's almost too small a dihedral to even see, really, but I'm not sure if they did that on purpose or that's just the way these plastic injection molding things work out. But in either case, both of these frames have the same angling of the arms. Okay, I think we're just about done. So in summary, I really wanted to like this frame. When I saw it on the Banggood listing, I just clicked on it and bought it straight away, because it was only, you know, $10 or $9.80 or something. But this is a bit of a worry, really. I don't really feel like it's a good idea to be flying around with this beck sticking out like that, and the rest of the stuff sticking out, and the flight controller is going to be where is it going to be? Back there somewhere. and I don't actually have a camera that's going to fit in there nicely at the moment. Like you saw, I only have this size one, or the little micro ones I suppose might be able to fit in there. So yeah, I don't know. I had hoped that this was going to take over from my ZMR and be my go-to quad for the next few months, but I'm just not really seeing it at the moment, I'm afraid. But it is a nice little frame if you want to check it out, and it's fairly cheap. So make up your own mind, I guess. Alright, well, it's been a long talk, but thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. I was just having a look at this again. I undid it, and I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, but if you put this PDB on that way, you don't have any of that stuff sticking out the bottom, except you do have some pads exposed still. And there's a couple of notches here and here which line up exactly with one of those sets of 3 pins there, and you have enough room to put the switching back in there and probably some wires as well. So maybe that's what they are intending you to do, although yeah, I guess that maybe this diagram is not very clear, is it? It's just a computer rendering, so they haven't bothered to model which side of the PDB that is there. A little bit lazy perhaps, but now that I look at that, it's not so bad. So I think it would be well enough protected from the outside. You could just put a bit of electrical tape over that if you were worried that it was going to be touching on wet grass or something. So I guess that's not so bad. It does seem a little awkward though, because you've got to solder the stuff on there, like you've got to solder your ESCs on, and then you've got to sort of fold that down and squish the wires in there. I guess it would work out alright. But then I guess that means that your ESCs themselves are going to be on the top. And the other thing I noticed is that there are holes right about where those pins are, so you can get at them nice and easily there. And there's also a hole right above where you can just see it in there, I think, the plus and minus. So right above where the battery connection goes on, there's a nice little hole right in that position. So perhaps I was overly critical just before, and the fault was mine really for thinking that you're going to put it up like that, which is probably not. It's not sensible by any stretch of the imagination, is it? So I guess this is what they mean. So I suppose I have to take back a little bit of what I've said in the video so far. Alright, that's it. See ya.